Hello, and Health Check from the BBC, the show with the latest global health news. I'm Claudia Hammond. Now, we'll have our regular roundup of what's happening where, and the Californian ranchers turning to horses to tackle depression. If someone has depression, the most common treatments are talking therapies and or medication. But in California, there's something rather different happening using ranches and horses, as Alison Van Diggelen reports.
Beth Killow has seen a spike in clients looking for help for anxiety, trauma and loneliness since the pandemic began. Today her client is a 50-year-old woman named Michelle, and they're in the barn with Riva, a brown mare with a black mane and tail.
So notice as you brush her if she gives you feedback.
Okay. I'm not sure what her feedback is.
Right as I stopped talking, she started licking and chewing, which is her nervous system going into a relaxed state. And she also took some steps forward. So what is she showing you?
I got it as I'm going to adjust so that you're doing where I want you to be.
Beth Killow has been working with horses for 4 decades. She pivoted her traditional talk therapy practice in an office to equine therapy when she bought the ranch 7 years ago. She examined equine research that showed physiological healing in people with post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and decided that you don't have to be in trauma to benefit from working with horses. The healing power of horses dates back to the ancient Greeks who used them for therapeutic purposes. In modern times, equine therapy still has its skeptics, but anecdotal evidence is now being supported by growing clinical research. Ellen K. Gerke runs an integrative health program at National University in San Diego. Her latest peer-reviewed research examined the treatment of PTSD in war veterans. It showed remarkable results.
We were at a conference a couple of years ago, and a bunch of public health people came up to us and said, "What pill are you giving these people? The effect is like a drug."
K. Gerke works with small groups of war veterans, some of whom have lost hope and are suicidal. Her 8-week programs help them build connection with the horses through grooming and interactive activities. More recently, she has them saddle up and ride.
So we wanted to get the veterans up on the horses, not to go galloping away, but to have some movement. We did notice there was quite a bit of difference when they rode, their spirit, their physical carriage, the way they stood, the way they presented themselves, their, just the openness around their faces. The main point of my program is the heart connection.
What does K. Gerke mean by the heart connection? It relates to heart rate variability, HRV, the variation in the time between consecutive heartbeats. A normal, healthy heart doesn't tick evenly like a metronome, but instead there's a constant variation. In general, the higher the variation at rest, the fitter you are and the greater your ability to handle stress. Professor Michael Myers, Chair of Health Sciences and a research physiologist at National University, has found that being with horses improves your heart rate variability.
Horses are prey animals, so they're constantly alerted to their surroundings, and that seems to trigger some response in humans. So we use a technique on these devices, which is basically reflection-based biooptical imaging. We're able to measure the heartbeats in the subject. And something around the horses changes the heart rate variation. That's stress, like when you're the fight or flight response, when you're running from the tiger. And what's really good is this, where the heart varies. It'll take a couple short beats and then a long beat. And horses seem to have that effect. It's within the first visit, within 3 hours, their heart rate variability is altered in a positive way.
And we noticed that their heart rate variability, like he said, improved the first day, but their self-report took 4 weeks. We could see that they were getting better, but they were still in these messages of sort of self-destruct. But by the 4th week, they actually started changing a lot of their self-report about how they were feeling, less agitated, less irritable, more joyful.
Beth Killow has found that the practices used for PTSD treatment can benefit her clients. In sessions of 2 to 4 hours, they're introduced to the horses in the pasture and spend time interacting with and grooming it. Back in the barn, Killow explains how horses deal with new challenges.
So they respond to what's happening because they're taking care of themselves 100% of the time. It's radical self-care. If you get really scared and reactive because you're not a horse and you're not living in a pasture where you're going to go galloping off and letting all those stress hormones, the adrenaline and the cortisol flow through you. Because what happens if you run is you use them. If you don't, they use you.
Okay.
And that's why you can't sleep.
Right.
So we want to start to build like a bucket of choices of things you can do when you feel that way.
Right.
You can't think of those things when you're in a panic.
You need your radio. You
Exactly.
Need your coloring book. You need your whatever.
She's releasing all kinds of pressure as we're talking about this phenomenon. She's like, oh, you guys hold on to a lot, don't you?
Oh, let it go.
Killa recommends we move our bodies, go on a walk in nature, get a punching bag, and find outlets to physically express ourselves.
The smells and textures of that's like the vibrant part of our humanity that we're missing out on when we're focused on our worries, other people, and either the past or the future.
Of course, we don't all have access to horses. Can our pets improve our mental health?
A good deal of our resilience to stress and change comes from our self-care practices. The animals, they show us how soothing it can be just to be. You get yourself close to the animal, you focus on the dog or a cat and their breath. Your only objective is to be together and breathe together. And now you give the animal a light stroke with one hand, and you place your other hand on your chest, right over your heart. And now you think about which of your human relationships might benefit from such a wordless and gentle check-in.
Alison Van Diglen reporting. Now, thank you very much, Dr. Anne Robinson, for joining us today. Thanks to the producer, Paula McGrath, and our studio engineer, Tim Heffer. We'll be back with more stories from the world of health at the same time next week. And if you want to make sure you never miss an episode of Health Check, do subscribe for free to the podcast. I'm Claudia Hammond. Bye for now.